Class 12, Deathworld. They refuse to surrender, even when dying.
Settle down, class, Miss Rimaki said loudly, clapping her long clawed hands together. Come now, it's time to learn about Earth. Her students all groaned at the prospect of another planetary lesson, and she pursed her bright yellow lips together. It had been hard for her, a Zumra, to get used to teaching. Her race all learned extremely quickly via text, being able to read more than one book with their 2 sets of slit-peopled eyes and highly complex brains. Her race's council leaders currently wanted to keep humans at arm's length. When they had first made contact, human delegates had spread word far and wide of the beautiful 4-eyed dragon people of the stars, and the amount of attention her people got made the council leaders uncomfortable. To be fair, they were all flattered at the response they got from the images of their people. But the humans had an eagerness about them that made the Zumra engage them at an extremely slow and measured pace. Whether it was their smooth skin, their head fronds, their short, thick tails, or their refined features, humans always seemed to fawn over them. It was reasoned that at one point humans may have had their own dragon-like creatures on Earth that died from an unknown illness, and the Zumra had spent years researching the draconic images found all over the blue and green marble of a world. This led many of their scholars to surmise that humans suffered from an infatuation with dragon-like entities and found themselves falling into the uncomfortable crosshairs of humanity. At the current point in time, Miss Rimaki wished the other people of the stars before her held the same sense of respect and found that the mixed classroom held little care for her teachings. It also may have been their age. She hated teaching adults. Isn't Earth's history just made up? A young blue Yorple mused, balancing a digital stylus on her nose lazily. I heard they all just live in giant gyms and are all born in vats. A bright pink opticon rolled his eyes. If they were born in vats, they wouldn't have navels. This is not about how humans are made. This is about their world, Miss Rimaki stated, frowning prettily and wrinkling her wide nose in annoyance. We will be going over human cultures and biology later during our studies on the cultures of the Cinderol Confederation. There was another collective groan, and Miss Rimaki placed her hands on her round hips. Really now, this is supposed to prime you all for your future professions. How are you going to know what to expect when visiting other planets? I'm sure you've all heard of the folly that came before the Opticon's visit to Earth. Miss Rimaki growled out, now crossing her arms. All of the Opticon in the classroom grimaced, remembering all too well the splash they made by their first pilots burying their craft into the dirt of Earth. The same young Yorple balancing her stylus snatched it off her nose when another of her fellows spoke up, a male Yorple with fur like firelight. That's not even going to change anything, though. They may be working out their muscles on that stupid orbital platform, but their hearts still grew too weak from their lack of gravity, or even use thereof. If the Opticons even run too much, they can risk heart failure. May as well put them in pressure suits as they frolic around the flowers, the blue female Yorple said, grinning at the male fangedly. Before Miss Rimaki could make them be quiet, multiple Opticon came up onto their feet in outrage, despite the sudden exertion, making them break out into a sweat. We do not need suits to be on Earth, the pink male Opticon called out, slamming his clawed hand as hard as he dared onto the table they all shared per row. We can earn our way through strength like the rest of you. A yellow female Opticon rounded on the blue female Yorple. All of us have been working out, entire base converted into gravity chambers, so we can toughen ourselves. Took you long enough. All you did was hide and mine asteroids the entire war, the blue female Yorple growled out, leaning back in her seat smugly. Miss Rimaki slammed her thick hands against her own table, rattling her data slates and causing her mantle of jewelry to rattle against her shoulders. That is enough! Sit down now! I will not have this decisive talk in my classroom! All of the Yorple and Opticon saw how Miss Rimiki's head fronds were expanding out, vibrating with her rage, and they all either leaned forward in their seats or sat back down. Zumra may have been a bookish race, but they still had the ability to attack the mind should they get riled up enough. Miss Rimaki cleared her throat, smoothing down the front of her teaching robes and resettling her mantle of duty. Right. The Carlake, Point, and Jin within the room looked at each other with awkward side glances, the Jin being the most confused. They were new to the Cinderal Confederation, the four-armed, triangular-headed race, having been nearly destroyed completely during the war against the Dermir. Like the others, they were seeking to pay back the humans for just barely keeping their culture alive, and numbered only in the low millions from the billions they were at their peak. One of the braver ones held up his hand, his eyes barely visible underneath the curved masks they all wore, as they did not show their face to anyone but their future or current spouse. So, Earth? Yes, Earth, Miss Rumiki said, turning and tapping the data screen so it came back to life. Earth is what many classify as a death world. Is that because of how boring it is? The blue female Yorpal spoke up again, and the males around her rolled their eyes this time. Miss Rumiki spun around, her head fronds out and deployed, and she fixed the Yorpal with a steely glare. Miss Mirak! Mirak clapped her hands to her head, her body suddenly filled with immeasurable dread. Wait! Mirak began to wail, her fingers digging into the fur of her head as Miss Rumiki focused her will on the insolent Yorpal. Be quiet, Miss Mirak, Miss Rumiki said firmly over the cries of the Yorpal, her draconic fronds quavering. Mirak was writhing on the ground now as she cried out, Okay, I'm sorry, stop! Stop it! Miss Rumiki's fronds began to slowly stop quavering and deflated, laying down neatly against her head and neck as she looked around the room. Anyone else wishing to disrupt my class? Many heads shook back and forth, the Jinn wondering to themselves just what the hell they got themselves into. Miss Rumiki cleared her throat, smoothing down her robes again as she gestured toward the screen. As I stated, many classify Earth as a death world due to its abnormally high gravity, inhabitants, and their culture. Humans, as we all know, are an extremely militant race when compared to the rest of us, and hone their skills for war by battling amongst themselves for thousands of years, though some speculate longer. Their gravity has allowed them to grow extremely thick-muscled, and in thus their strength is also quite high. Those of the Confederation who are currently training with the humans have made note that they tire far quicker and cannot last as long in combat trials in comparison to the humans. Humans currently training on other worlds in agreement with the military exchange program have made a mockery of them, dominating the training with ease, Miss Rumiki said, tapping her fingers together and making the data screen flick through multiple pictures of humans throwing Yorpal like sacks of grain through the air, or bending Zumra nearly in half during melee combat trials. While clever, they lack the focused intelligence that the rest of us possess, but that is not to mistake humans as stupid. They are highly dangerous predatory beings that can think extremely quickly and make calculations on the move that even the Opticans struggle with. They merely lag behind in raw intelligence, but there is a notion that they may not lag for long. A juniper-colored Yorpal raised his hand, and Miss Rumiki pointed to him. Then why haven't humans taken over the Confederation then? If they're so powerful, then why not do what the Dirmir tried? It is a fair question, Miss Rumiki said with a smile, then tapped the pad of her middle finger to her thumb, the screen switching over to another set of slides showing humans laughing and smiling with other races. They are an extremely sociable race and appear to like us, so they are not being outwardly aggressive. Some humans have coined the phrase take and give when it comes to working with them, and they are only outwardly aggressive should they receive aggression in the first place. A female Jinn raised her topmost arm, giving her little hand a wave. Is that why the Zumra have a non-social engagement clause with the humans? Miss Rumiki blushed, having not assumed the Jinn were even aware of that. She cleared her throat before speaking, lacing her fingers together. Well, when we first made contact, the humans were enamored with us, and our council of leadership feared for. I heard they were seducing too many Zumra women, a Kerlake said with raised scaly brows, his head giving a little shake of humor. Half the landing party went off mission and have yet to even leave Earth, leading Zumra leadership to panic. They were causing social issues, yes, Miss Rumiki said shortly, giving her head a shake because her tendrils were starting to slightly flare in embarrassment. Our council of leadership feared that it would cause a social death. How curious, the female Jinn murmured, tilting her masked face slightly. So a death world in more than one way. That is due to the sociability of humans, Miss Rumiki agreed, tapping through more slides slowly to let the students look. The more dour-faced scholars believe that humans are akin to an infection and will work their ways into all levels of society amongst the races of the stars. However, despite this outlook, all those who meet humans appear to find them good company, and it matters not how the other races look. Just last week, one of the gelatinous Orgur, they themselves made a human friend, and it dragged the entire race out of an emotional slump. A Point raised his hand. Aren't the Orgur just a race of intelligent jelly balls that live in suits? I heard they have tentacles that work little nodes in their suits to make it move. They are a highly advanced invertebrate peoples that were only just recently found on their planet. Of course, no one wanted to really work with balls of slime with tentacles, so they have been ostracized by the races at large. Humanity, however, finds them curious. Miss Rimiki mused, but then turned back to the data screen. Besides its gravity, Earth has multiple biodomes due to humans not seeking to control their planet's weather or temperature. As you all well know, the Confederation at large practices tempering to make sure all planets are as comfortable as possible for all those visiting. Earth, however, does not do this. Miss Rimiki waved her hand at the screen, and it zoomed in towards a flat image of Earth and its zones of temperature. Some areas can go as low as 0.35 chot, or negative 135 degrees Fahrenheit as to human measurements. On the other hand, it has been recorded as being as hot as 34 chot, or 134 degrees Fahrenheit. They don't live in those areas, do they? A male Yorpal asked, staring up at the screen in confusion. And why would they just allow temperatures like this? I couldn't tell you why they allow it. Miss Rimiki shrugged, speaking matter-of-factly. But some of them actually do live in such locations, or vacation there for the challenge of surviving it. This is not even a new phenomenon, as humans have been raging against the weather of their planet for nearly as long as they have been fighting themselves. But why? A Jinn asked, not even bothering to raise his hand. Miss Rimiki pursed her thick lips for a moment, then shrugged again. Maybe due to the fact that they master all the other predators of their planet, and see the planet itself as their last remaining challenge. This is seen in their sports as well, many of which are outlawed for other members of the Confederation to try. What kind of sports? A female Jinn called out in excitement, nearly coming to her feet. Is there wrestling? Miss Rimiki giggled politely, quickly tapping her fingers to her palm to switch slides over to human sports. Oh yes, quite a few that are all very much allowed by the Confederation. But extreme human sports are outlawed for their death rate. They have sports where they die? The Jinn asked again. Quite a few, actually. Humans are known to climb or dive down into caves where there is a risk of dying to crush and lack of oxygen, climbing up rock faces with no safety equipment, riding waves of water on nothing but planks of wood, riding fearsome beasts with nothing more than a rope to keep them anchored, racing around in combustion engine vehicles, leaping from great heights with only a sheet of nylon to arrest their fall. Miss Rimiki listed, showing slides of each sport until she came to a slide of 2 bloody humans in a netted ring. There is even extreme sparring where 2 humans, male and females alike, batter each other to the point of either running out of time or one of them being knocked unconscious. Miss Rimiki grimaced at the slide of a female human bleeding profusely from the face, then switching to another slide. Humans may be trying to beat death itself, running out of enemies that are unbeatable. You said they ride great beasts? A Point asked, her hair glittering gold in the light of the classroom. What kind of beasts? I thought all planets ridded themselves of large predators and such for safety reasons. Miss Rimiki actually laughed. Yes, this is true, but humans do not abide by such rules. They believe it is, how did they say, unfair. Unfair? The Point snorted. What is unfair about evolution? We Point destroyed every predator and animal larger than a boovum so that our planet is completely safe. Why even keep big animals alive in cages? Cages? Miss Rimiki asked with raised brow ridges. You think humans keep the big animals in cages? The point blanched, her fully yellow eyes going wide. They're in cages, right? Miss Rimmicky rapidly tapped her thumb to bring up the correct slide, and the class recoiled. What is that? A Jin called out, standing up out of his chair and taking a few steps backwards. This is called a grizzly bear, and is a predator on Earth that still roams wild in the forests, Miss Rimmicky said with a smirk, seeing the fear in their eyes as their bravado left them. It can reach speeds of over 35 miles per hour, Earth measurements, or 6.5 opsecs. This means that it can even chase down and catch Yorple running at their top speed. All of the Yorple in the room looked stunned, if not outright horrified. Miss Rimmicky continued on. They have a bite strength that can cleave straight through human bones, and we all know how tough those are. This animal is called a lion, and it can run up to 37 miles per hour in short bursts during ambushes, and has the same bite strength as the grizzly bear. Then there are cheetahs, a land predator that can get up to 80 miles per hour in speed, and has a bite force under that of the lion, and it does not stop there. Miss Rimmicky kept clicking through the major land predators of Earth, then to the ones that lurk under the water as well. Killer whales, sharks, and barracuda in the sea, wolves, hippos, and tigers on land, all roaming in the open, with no cages or gates. This is not accounting for the kinds of animals humans keep as pets, and they are known to keep both canine and feline predators as such. Why do they even leave these things alive? They're monsters! A shaking male Yorple cried out, his tawny yellow fur shaking. What is the point? Miss Rimmicky laughed calmly, shaking her head, as she still didn't believe humans had told her this directly. They keep these creatures around because if they weren't there, it would be too boring in nature. The room sat quiet for a moment as the words sunk in, all while Miss Rimmicky nodded her head. Yes, I know what you're thinking, and they truly do believe this. Miss Rimmicky turned around, her thick tail nudging the desk slightly forward, and she turned back around with a new data chip, plugging it into the data screen. Nature would lose, as they say, its pizzazz, the extra spark that makes it just a little bit more special. She quickly tapped her palm with her finger, bringing up multiple pictures of prowling Earth predators on both land and ocean. Humans believe that their world is healthier with these predators in place. It is by far the most perplexing node of the human culture, and has befuddled the Confederation ever since they joined. Humans not only seek to leave their world as untouched as possible, but seek to keep the natural order of it intact, even if that means deaths of their own race at the whims of these animals. Humans have been chased, killed, and eaten by these land predators before, some even as recent as last week, when a human hiker was chased and killed by a black bear. And then they killed all the black bears, right? A female Carlaken asked, holding her hands out, palms up. If the animals killed a human and proved themselves a threat, then they were removed, yes? Miss Rimmicky nodded. Oh, yes, they found the bear and killed it, but only that one bear. That doesn't make any sense, the Carlaken murmured, tapping at her chin. What is the point of just sacrificing yourself to these animals? Miss Rimmicky exhaled as she thought, tapping at the data screen with a claw. I think they are as much a part of their planet as everything else, and I am one of the few who believe that humans do gain power from their planet. Those who think the same as I do have come to a conclusion that humans need to keep their planet in as much of its natural state as possible in order to keep being as strong as they are. With danger still lurking around every bush and shrub of grass, they don't fall complacent. With toothsome predators lurking beneath the waves, they don't assume they are safe, even when standing in a stream. If a human falls prey to the predators of old, they are seen as weak, and the planet itself has filtered them out. While the weather and gravity are bad and worthy of having Earth labeled a death planet, It is the presence of these land predators that truly makes the warning labels stick. Miss Rimmicky pointed to a few of the Yorpal sitting near the front of her classroom. You Yorpal have eradicated all of your ancient predators, and new alike. And this will stick with you. You will believe you are safe and sound on Earth, and won't notice the wolves creeping up on you.
Wolves?
A Yorpal asked, and Miss Rimmicky tapped her pinky finger to the broad hand muscle of her thumb, pulling up an article of the Confederation newsletter. Wolves. 3 Yorpal were found dead by a wolf attack, having gone out camping without a guide. 3 engineers were found mauled to death inside their tent and partially eaten, Miss Rimmicky said sternly, pointing a hand at the crime scene photos showing the dismembered victims. They ignored the rules and the warnings, did not take a human guide, and thought themselves too advanced to fall prey to some little human animal. This is only the latest, and the Confederation is wavering still on whether or not to ban the other races from venturing outside military bases or major cities. A female Yorpal stared up at the images with open horror on her face, her pawed hands coming toward her cheeks.
They were eaten.
Eaten, Miss Rimmicky said in a low tone. This event happened only days after a Poit was nearly mauled to death by a creature only known as a honey badger, having been training on the landmass known as Africa. He had strayed too far off the path and mistaken the animal for a cat. A Jinn raised her hand, looking up at the screen as Miss Rimmicky showed pictures of the 2 creatures side by side.
Did he live?
Just barely. The creature had severed several critical arteries in their legs, and the humans had to apply pressure wraps to keep him from bleeding out in the grasslands, Miss Rimmicky replied, then folded her arms under her chest. Humans thrive in these conditions of danger, and it is why all of you must exercise extreme caution if you find yourselves on Earth. You are not built like humans, and do not have the honed minds of them. There is even rumors of humans having a sixth sense, an innate way to know when danger is near, without ever setting eyes on whatever it is that is threatening them. We believe this was instilled in them by other creatures. Mirak turned her head towards Miss Rimmicky, having been staring at the slide showing an earthen-maned wolf.
Other creatures?
The things we believe the humans did try to exterminate, but have failed to do so. These beings are cemented in their folklore as things that even frighten humans and are rare, hiding in the deep woods or far underground. Miss Rimmicky said as she turned the slide to a horrifying creature sporting gnarled horns on its skull head and grotesque dangling limbs. These are creatures known as skinwalkers, a horrifying biological monstrosity that, while first thought to be made up, have been confirmed by leading Yorpal and Poit biologists. Traces of these beings have been found in a mountain range known as the Appalachians, and stories of them lead us to believe they were the first true apex predator that the humans had to tackle. There were others, but this is one of the few still alive on the planet, and we are still looking for others. Miss Rimmicky then chuckled, rubbing at her temple. Then there is the issue of humans wanting to bring back some of their old land predators with the help of the Yorpal. Breakthroughs with bringing some of the more mundane animals back to life, such as the Irish elk and Pooli, incensed the humans. There is now news that the Tasmanian tiger now roams the world again, and the humans are setting their sights on old.
Oh no!
An Opticon gasped out, clasping his talons to his face.
They've been dreaming of this. I've seen the old recordings.
Miss Rimmicky held up a hand and cut the Opticon off. Humans are banned from bringing back the giant lizards. It's already been addressed. Believe me when I say that nearly every citizen of the Confederation has seen what used to live on Earth via their historical recordings, and no one is keen to see them back on that planet, or anywhere else for that matter. The room murmured their thankfulness that the humans were being curtailed to that degree at least, but also had a curious wondering about just what else lived on that planet so long ago. As it stands, Miss Rimmicky said loudly to make them all pay attention to her again. Earth is the most dangerous planet known to the Confederation, just behind the Dearmere home planet, which, as we all know, is a shattered hunk of rock thanks to the humans. While you are allowed to go to Earth, you must do so under the careful watch of the humans. This is to ensure that no one else falls prey to the predators that roam the world freely. And yes, while it is extremely counterintuitive to keep such predators alive, it is part and parcel of human culture and their way of life to be predators that allow other predators to live. It should also be known that this is just how humans are. They are the top predator and take power from letting others live by their own choice. Grizzly bears do not stay living because they are scary to the humans. Humans allow them to live because they hold the power to delete them from existence overnight. From powerful predators, such as humans, comes the need to dominate, and this is the fourth reason why Earth is considered a death world. Humans themselves are considered a danger that must be met with keen intelligence in order to not fall prey to them. And this is thankfully still on a microscale. When interacting with humans, remember that this is a race that allows other, larger, deadly predators to exist, so they too may stay strong and keep their planet healthy. It is only their good-natured attitude and culture of friendship bonding that keeps them from becoming the next great enemy to the Confederation, but their natural reality must always be kept in the forefront of your minds. Miss Rimicky's desk dinged with a small chime, and she nodded. That is all the time we have for today. You are all dismissed. When the classroom was empty, Miss Rimmicky turned off the lights and data screens and made her way down the long hallways of the secondary space station that orbited Earth. This one was far larger, newer, and seen as a transit hub and training station, the other slightly older station mostly populated by the Opticant for their own training. Gravity was at Earth levels here, except for the transit columns that had rails of hoops to grab onto, shuffling people along in their zero gravity to the station level they sought. Due to the length of the station, elevators were seen as too cumbersome, and this method was used instead. Miss Rimmicky took a loop, and it dragged her through zero gravity towards the living quarters, and she got off at her level. The gravity eased back into Earth gravity as she walked past the bulkhead, making her way towards her hab unit. She placed her hand onto the reader, and the door unlocked with a sharp click. Miss Rimmicky stepped inside, grinning widely as the human inside turned around, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Well, there's my little space dragon. I got dinner ready, so come, sit down. And what all were you teaching today?" the man said, rolling his shoulder as he threw the towel into the sink. Miss Rimicky's grin widened as she closed the door behind her, stepping into the kitchen with graceful sways of her hips. "Oh, you know, just how dangerous humans are."